The officials for this evening's first game: Paul Hausman from Roanoke, Virginia; Larry Rose of Cortland, Virginia; Scott Thornley of Pocatello, Idaho. And it will be number 40, Tony Scott, jumping against Willie Burton. Coleman had it and lost it, and now the Gophers will have possession.
Well, the Gophers are going to do everything they can to try to milk the clock. They'll take opportunity breaks. That's breaks that they have the numbers on. But as a rule, they don't want to get into a running contest with Syracuse.
The lob to the baseline. Newbern underneath, lost the ball, and back comes Syracuse. This is Edwards. Bounce pass cross court, intercepted. And they'll try the break again. This is Newbern, number 20. Shot doesn't fall. Rebound is good.
Well, Greg, I really think that's where Minnesota has to excel on getting putbacks, second shot opportunities. That time they hustled down, were able to put back in the easy shot.
Basket by Richard Coffey puts Minnesota up 2-0. This is Derek Coleman.
This is an interesting matchup here. You got Richard Coffey, who's he's a tough individual. He's got a disadvantage guarding Derek Coleman, but he's tough enough that he'll make Derek work hard, and that's all that they want to do for Minnesota.
Clem Haskins told us before the game he'll try to stay with the man-to-man, but if his guys get into foul trouble, look for him to switch to zone.
He would much prefer the man-to-man. They don't know necessarily that they will get overmatched in it, but what he does know is that they work harder at man-to-man than they will as a zone.
Coleman's turnaround doesn't fall. Owens follows. No good. Coleman is there. And the whistle blows, and that's Willie Burton, who is holding.
Yeah, he said he's all right. He got popped in the eye a little bit. The other side of the coin is we were talking about Minnesota. They must get putbacks, but they can't allow those putbacks to happen on the part of Syracuse. Long arms of Derek Coleman, Stevie Thompson, Billy Owens. They can get to the ball.
This is Richard Coffey, number 33, and then Burton, 34. 20 is Melvin Newbern underneath. And Coffey scores again. 4-2 Gophers. And we welcome those of you awaiting the start of the Loyola Marymount, Alabama West Regional Semifinal in Oakland. Before that gets underway, Greg Gumbel along with Quinn Buckner, and Minnesota's Melvin Newbern lays it in for a 6-2 Gophers lead. This is Southeast Regional Semifinal action, game 1 of 2 here in New Orleans at the Superdome.
Well, one of the problems that Minnesota is going to cause for Syracuse is this one here, bringing the ball up the court. You see Billy Owens brings it up. That takes him away from the basket.
Tony Scott, open jumper, doesn't fall. Rebound for the Gophers. 33, Richard Coffey, and he is tough on the board.
He's a former paratrooper, so he's been through a lot tougher times than just trying to rebound the basketball.
Oh, beautiful pass. Beautiful pass from Burton to Richard Coffey.
Now, one of the things Willie Burton is very good at is taking the ball to the basket, and Syracuse knows that. They try to come and help out, and it frees Richard Coffey under there. Burton got him the basketball.
Foul is on Tony Scott. That's his first, and Coffey will shoot 2.
There's a risk here with Syracuse, and we touched on it at the top of the show. Because you haven't heard of Minnesota, you think about playing the Indianas, maybe the Purdue's, or not as much Michigan State, but definitely Minnesota. You may not take them to be as good a team as they are. They are a well-coached basketball team.
Minnesota. Coffey has 6 of the Gophers' 8 points, and they go to the pressure, broken by the Orange men.
You'll see a lot of change in defense. That's one thing that Clem will do.
And Minnesota into the zone now.
They play a matchup. I can understand why they do that. Against Syracuse, you want to make them shoot jump shots. Test their patience on the offensive end.
Plenty of time on the shot clock. It's down to 20. Whistle underneath, and that foul is on 45, Jim Shikenjansky, a 6'9" senior out of Rockton, Illinois.
Big Schick's got his hands full. They call him Schick for short. It's because it's tough getting out Shikenjansky sometimes.
Tell me about it.
But he has his hands full down there trying to guard Billy Owens.
Almost tapped away by Newbern. Number 4, Dave Johnson, is now into the game for Syracuse. And he's replaced Michael Edwards. This is Johnson with the ball.
To keep the shot on the perimeter, Minnesota went to a 3-2 zone.
Scott no good. Coffey up for the rebound. Coffey comes in averaging 9 points and 9.3 rebounds a game. Burton down low inside. Shikanjansky will hold on and gives it to Lynch on the way to the basket, and he's traveled.
Kevin Lynch has been somewhat of a surprise for him too, Greg. He's a great shooter for him, and I'm sure Jimmy Boeheim got to be concerned why his team is out of the block so slowly, because I think that's a problem for Syracuse, to get out of the block slowly and then been forced to speed up the tempo.
Minnesota back into the man-to-man and almost mishandled by Syracuse. Johnson to Owens inside.
That's a good find by David Johnson right there.
8-4. The Gophers lead with 16:25 to play first half. Good pass for Burton. He's fouled on the way to the basket. Good movement down low by the Gophers.
They will do that. I said they're well coached. That time Derek Coleman got caught. He was coming over to help out, but I tell you what, Willie Burton did a good job taking the ball to the other side to draw the foul.
Willie Burton, the fourth leading scorer in history for Minnesota. As you look at Walter Bond, the 6'5", 220-pound junior from Chicago, has come into the game for the Gophers.
Took out Richard Coffey. They're going to miss some rebounding taking Coffey out of the game, but what you have on the court, though, with the exception of Shikanjansky for Minnesota, they have very good athletes, which makes their zone very active.
There's Clem Haskins, three-time player of the year in the Ohio Valley Conference at Western Kentucky. 9-4, Minnesota. And this is Coleman, fronted by Bond. Inside, all alone, Tony Scott left alone.
That time defense didn't do a very good job of flattening out, protecting the basket first, and then moving back out toward the top of the key. And you saw Derek Coleman find it.
Syracuse back within 3 with 16 minutes to play. Newburn snakes his way inside.
Greg, I've seen him do that before. I haven't watched him in the Big Ten. Melvin Newberg is surprising. He reminded me of Ray Williams that used to play at Minnesota. He's got the kind of game that once he gets going on a roll, he's real sticky, but he's very good.
Thompson, the lob. Oh, what a lob and what a grab by Billy Owens.
You size it up pretty well. Billy Owens jumped over 2 people to get that one.
Minnesota's lead is 3. Winner of this one takes on the winner of game 2 tonight. That'll be Michigan State and Georgia Tech. Long range jumper outside. Three-pointer is good by Willie Burton.
I'll tell you, it's working, but what I'm surprised at is I thought Minnesota would try to take more time off the clock. I thought they'd run it down to 20 or so to make Syracuse work defensively and then get the shot, but they're getting them early and making them.
Gophers in the man-to-man. Stevie Thompson, his first shot, and it's a good one. Back down the baseline, the Gophers shot doesn't go, and here comes Owens. Owens breaking a press all by himself and then lost it. Tap to a wide-open Dave Johnson, and he's fouled by Burton.
Tony Scott made a great tap there. The ball was just moving around freely, and Scott got it over to Johnson.
This is kind of like a wide-open fire drill.
Well, Billy Owens took the ball in traffic there, and you see right there that it's just lost. But the tap was what I'm talking about. That is just great presence of mind, and Willie Burton just came over to prevent the easy basket.
Willie Burton, a 6'7" senior out of Detroit. And at the free throw line is Dave Johnson from Morgan City, Louisiana. He missed the first one. LeRon Ellis, number 25, is also in the game for Syracuse.
LeRon Ellis is in the game. They lose some jump shooting with Scott going out of the game. Scott is a great jump shooter.
Shot no good. Loose ball reclaimed by Johnson. Owens back to Johnson. Now drives off the glass. Doesn't fall. Loose ball. Finally coming down with it, the Gophers. Coffey, who's back in the game. Newburn to the baseline and then slows it down. This is Kevin Lynch.
Yeah, Kevin Lynch is a smart player. This guy, I like him because he's one of those guys that'll do the dirty work. He understands how to play. Slowed it up for his team and allowed them to get that shot.
And Richard Coffey has 8 points. He comes into the game averaging 9. He has half of the Gophers' point total, and it's 16-10 with 14 minutes to play in the first half.
And I might add, Richard Coffey is not a jump shooter, so that's a plus for Minnesota to see Coffey making jump shots.
Biggest lead this early on in the game for Minnesota. Coleman works his way inside. Shot doesn't fall. Owens working hard on the boards.
Offensive rebounds, we talked about it. Not doing a very good job blocking out for Minnesota. But I'll tell you what, when you're trying to block out somebody like Billy Owens, as strong and as quick as he is, it's tough. And Derek Coleman's got those long arms. You've got to really put a body on those guys.
Newburn takes it, shot partially blocked by Thompson, and here comes Coleman. Big guy handling the ball, coming down court and finds, nice pass from Owens for Thompson.
That's why you don't want to get into an up-tempo game with Syracuse, because they got people like, you see a 6'10" guy and Coleman bringing it down, and then they get the easy basket.
6'10" Derek Coleman brings it down, and 6'9" Billy Owens makes a pass like a guard. Burton, three-pointer. Doesn't fall. Big rebound from Minnesota, but it doesn't go, and Ellis taps it over to Thompson. Here comes Coleman, 4-on-1, 5-on-1, and a charging violation on Syracuse. Jim Boeheim will be shaking his head about that. 12:47 to play in the first half. It's Minnesota by 2. There have been some incredible games thus far in this tournament, not the least of which was Connecticut's last second, and we do mean last second victory last night over Clemson.
Well, that was a great game. I never suspected that could happen, but you know, that's the fun thing about college basketball. Anything can happen, and you sit there and you watch that and you marvel with 1 second, and you see them come out, you know, their heads are in the ground, and then they come up with a victory.
Texas and Arkansas will be a great game, and of course Duke looking to move ahead, and Duke Athletic Director Tom Butters is one of the NCAA representatives here in New Orleans, and inwardly kind of dying that he can't watch his Blue Devils in action.
Duke's down at their second home now in East Rutherford.
Minnesota with the ball out of bounds, and now belongs to Syracuse. 12.5 minutes to play here in the first half.
Clem Haskins encouraging Melvin Newberg. He has to watch himself. That's the one thing about him. He plays well at times, but he'll get streaky and have some bad streaks like that pass he just threw out of bounds.
Number 15, Connell Lewis, a 6'1" senior guard out of Detroit, is in the game, and LeRon Ellis off the baseline, no. And another rebound for Richard Coffey. That's 5 for him.
With Lewis in the game, you got primarily a ball handler.
That's a blocking foul on LeRon Ellis.
Ron Ellis has been somewhat interesting at Syracuse. He started for a while. Jimmy Boeheim made a decision to sit him down, try to let him look at the game for a while, to try to get more enthusiasm, get him piped up to play. He seemed to play at one pace. Jimmy Boeheim wanted that pace to be more up-tempo.
Connell Lewis, a key role player in Clem Haskins' pressure defensive schemes.
Yeah, he's a good, quick player, point guard. You see Syracuse is out in the 2-3 zone here. Force a shot from the outside.
Lewis finds Shikanjansky for the quick pop.
You can always pop through a zone from the backside and usually get open. That's exactly what Shikanjansky did.
Shikanjansky's first 2 points, and Owens takes it hard, loses it, and it belongs to Syracuse. Timeout on the floor. Minnesota lead it by 4. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Superdome in New Orleans, everyone. Greg Gumbel along with Quinn Buckner. Syracuse University, 20 games or more they've won in Jim Boeheim's 14 years. 13 times they've done that. 12,000 students, very proud of what the school has accomplished, and most famous alumnus, Jim Brown.
Well, I would say that's somebody that's got very famous.
These guys are running like Jim Brown did.
Well, they are. They're getting down. If you look at the screen, you see this is a 5-on-1 that Derek Coleman gets too fancy with it. I mean, he's doing his little schoolyard work here, and he's not getting points. That's not something you can afford to have if you're trying to beat a team like Minnesota.
Coleman, three-pointer. Boy, he can do that.
And you see, they come out into a 2-2-1 full-court press.
18-17, Minnesota's lead is 1. Mario Green, number 5, into the lineup, has the ball now for Minnesota.
Ball handler's got good skills, very quick player.
Green's going to try and drive it, but took a step before he dribbled.
They were expecting a lot from Mario Green. I've watched him practice, and Greg, he really has some good skills, but he seems to be, as he was that time, sometimes he's a little ahead of himself, and that's what caused him to travel.
Tapped out of bounds. Mario Green, a 6'2", 185 junior from Freeport in the Bahamas.
Wonder if he's with Michael Thompson very much, also from the Bahamas. We're talking about running for the Prime Minister.
There's a foul inside. The basket will count, and Billy Owens will go to the line for a three-point play. Walter Bond, the guilty party.
Well, one of the other things Derek Coleman can do, obviously, is pass the ball. But when you have a target like Billy Owens, it makes a big difference. And you see Walter Bond let Billy Owens get behind him and foul him and try to stop him at the shots.
Melvin Newbern into the lineup now for Minnesota. You hear coaches talk about going up strong with it, Quinn, and that's exactly what kept Billy Owens going on that play.
You power to the basket, and I happen to like Billy Owens. He's the best all-around player on the team when he gets his jump shot going consistently, and that's something that he's worked at really hard.
Lewis, good pass down low to Shikanjansky.
You're right. That's not a very easy pass to make. Right off the elbow, straight down. Got a little angle in there. Shikanjansky. No help by Syracuse.
Minnesota up 1, under 10.5 to play. Owens, quick turnaround. That one's off the mark. Rebounded by Lewis. Out of bounds, and that'll belong to Minnesota. Substitution into the game for the Golden Gophers now. 34, Willie Burton comes back in, and Connell Lewis gets congratulations all around at the Gopher bench.
Well, he came in, he didn't turn it over. You want that to happen. Come off the bench. Don't make me lose my lead, or just keep me even. That's what Connell Lewis helped happen.
Willie Burton spots up and doesn't get it. Stephen Thompson had it, lost it, out of bounds, Minnesota ball.
Looked like that time, not David Johnson, but Syracuse, as a rule, the ball was out there and everybody kept running to try to get on the other end of the fast break. Nobody stopped to get the ball.
There's a reach-in foul on LaRon Ellis.
That's not a good foul at all. I mean, those are the kinds of things that Jimmy Boeheim gets somewhat frustrated with LaRon Ellis about, because LaRon has such good potential. That time he just didn't use his head.
To 19, Minnesota by 1. Walter Bond on the drive will leave it for Coffey. That doesn't go, and back comes Syracuse.
Syracuse has got to start posting up. If they catch Minnesota in a man-to-man, they've got a height advantage. They've got to take that advantage.
There's the steal by Newbern in a foot race, and he wins it, but blew the shot. And Willie Burton fouls on the attempted rebound. There's a case of hearing footsteps behind you, Quinn.
Well, it was a combination of hearing footsteps. The defensive effort was good. Melvin Newbern shaking his head. But Derek Coleman just didn't see from the backside Melvin Newbern comes. Now, what it looks like to me, he doesn't have his mind made up as to what he wants to do. He thinks he wants to dunk it, and then he just loses it off his fingertip. There's no question about the foul on Willie Burton. But that indecision caused him to miss that shot. Because if you hear Derek Coleman, I guess you would say something about footstep, but I'd dunk it if I could.
5 team fouls on each side now. Owens moving, got the pass, and gets the bucket. That's 10 for Owens. And Syracuse back on top by 1. Lynch for Coffey. Back rim, no. Coleman has it, and up ahead for Johnson. Too far.
Well, that one goes too far, but that's not the last time we're going to see a fast break. And the reason that I say that is, as I look, there was nobody back defensively for Minnesota, so it looks they're sending the guards to the offensive board. They're not getting back to protect their basket.
Coming up here on CBS later tonight, here from New Orleans, Georgia Tech, Michigan State. Ball State will be taking on Nevada, Las Vegas from Oakland, California in the West Regional. Shikanjansky hits the shot off. It doesn't fall. Coleman with another rebound. Johnson will push it. Ellis had the open shot, didn't take it. Thompson trying to get inside, batted back out, and here come the Gophers. This is a 4-on-2, and Newbern will keep it.
See, that's the kind of thing he's capable of doing, Greg. Just like he threw the pass out of bounds, he can go 1-on-4 like he should and still make something good happen.
Coleman, three-pointer on the way. And the whistle blows.
He called it across the top. It hit hit the top of the backboard. That's a good call. So therefore, Jimmy Boeheim's team loses it out of bounds.
Into the game for Minnesota is big number 55, Bob Martin, a 7-foot sophomore from Apple Valley, Minnesota.
Bob Martin has been a bit of a project for him. When I talked to Clem about him, he really thought he'd be a good player, but they haven't seen the kind of improvement they wanted to see this year.
Well, he's going to post up LaRon Ellis right away. See what he does with it. Fakes once. That's not a bad move.
I'd say it's a project that's come along quite well, given that.
3-point Minnesota lead. 7 minutes, 50 seconds to play first half. And Coleman trying to do the same for Coffey. Ellis is open.
Yeah, he's got to shoot that shot because the defense will back off, keeping Derek Coleman from getting the ball. Ellis or all of Syracuse, if they get that one at the corner, they got to shoot it.
Walter Bond regained the handle. And Coleman with a good defensive play and took it away. Thompson, Owens, Scott. Tapped home by Thompson.
Great. One of the things that happens when you get in the open court game, these gangly bodies like Stevie Thompson can get offensive rebounds, and the turnovers are the things that will really kill Minnesota because nobody's prepared to get back and therefore not block out on the other end.
Lynch to the baseline. That's a good shot.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Lynch is a good player. He's a surprising player. He can shoot the three-pointer as well.
Under 7 minutes for the half. Coleman, baseline. Doesn't go. Coleman follows, lost it. Saved by Coffey, and back come the Gophers. Lynch pulls it up. And now Bond out to Newbern. That one's way short.
They got partially blocked. Billy Owens got a hand on it.
Owens, good look for Thompson. Syracuse by 1, 27-26, and putting on a passing display so far.
Well, they're at their tempo too, Greg. This is the way they want it. If they can play all 10 or 12 minutes on the defensive end and then running back on the offensive end, that's what they'd rather do.
Lynch on the run. Didn't fall for him. And Ellis got a finger in the eye, it looks like. While LaRon Ellis takes a moment, we will too. 6:04 to play first half. We'll be back. Welcome back to a facility only slightly larger than Quinn Buckner's dream house, the Louisiana Superdome. Greg Gumbel along with Quinn Buckner. 1-point lead for the Orange with 6:04 to play in the first half. And you're wondering what happened to LaRon Ellis just as we took a break. Here's what happened.
Well, as Kevin Lynch takes the shot, in the left side of your screen, you'll see LaRon Ellis go up. But right in the middle, Richard Coffey swipes up at the ball and just looks like he grazes LaRon Ellis in the eye. They've taken a look at him, but he seems to be all right. They set him down. You know, he just needs to tell you that he's all right. Basically, that happens to you. You're scared because the one thing you really don't want to have happen to you is get stuck in the eye.
Loyola Marymount jumping off to the lead over Alabama, and Robert Horry out of the game for Alabama is a big blow to the Crimson Tide.
Well, it really is because Robert Horry is their jump shooter. He can stick it with range, and he's been playing well in the tournament.
We'll keep you updated on the progress of that one as we progress in this one. Scott's shot from outside, no. Owens on the follow, doesn't go. Loose ball, it'll come back out to the Orange men.
Greg, Minnesota is making a fundamental mistake. They're trying to jump with Syracuse instead of blocking out first and then going after the ball. If you just jump, Syracuse will out-jump you.
Inside, 4 men around Coleman, and he's fouled by number 15, Connell Lewis.
Oh, boy, they had him well surrounded, and Connell Lewis, all he had to do was get his body in position. Instead, he reached in there with his hand, the official caught him. They had 3 men around there, Coleman. He wasn't going to get up a good shot.
Syracuse's all-time leader in scoring and rebounding.
You know, he's played so much more focused, with so much more direction this year than he had in the past. I mean, it's good to see a young man get himself together and play the way that Derek Coleman has this year.
He missed those 2. Syracuse is now 0 for 5 from the free throw line. Amazing, because the Orange men have been hitting 80% of their free throws in the tournament so far.
Could it be the facilities? Derek was down there before it and didn't quite get it done.
Well, he wouldn't be the first to complain about the problems of shooting here in the Superdome.
You know, it is a problem when you have a backdrop like you do here, Greg. I'm not a shooter, so I wouldn't have as much problem, but it is. That perception is bad.
Big Bob Martin doing a job on the offensive board. Missed the first shot, stole it, and scored. He's got 4. Minnesota has a 1-point lead. We have 4:55 to play for the half.
They're in a 2-3 zone. It'll be an active zone. Forces jump shot.
Thompson, travel.
You're right. You know, and I was about to say the one thing that you don't want to happen in the zone is allow Stevie Thompson or anybody else to get that close. I mean, before he traveled, he had a 12-foot shot.
9 turnovers for the Orange men to 5 for Minnesota. Newburn will take it from outside. Front rim, no, and hustling after it was Newburn, but he tapped it out of bounds.
I've said this repeatedly, not today. The toughest shot for a team offensive rebound is when somebody, the point guard particularly like Newburn, takes a shot that quickly. Nobody's moving, can't get offensive rebound.
Minnesota making Syracuse, moving around the outside. Johnson looking for a way, takes it from the free throw line and rebounded by Martin. He lost it and he was fouled.
Well, they really get some production out of Martin. When you can come off the bench and get a guy to give you a couple of rebounds and points the way he's doing, you've got to be pleased with that.
Bob Martin has 4 points. That's already double his scoring average. And we'll go down to the other end to shoot. Foul is on Dave Johnson, number 4.
Having watched Clem Haskins' team for the past 2 years, you can see the maturity, and you can see a lot of Clem in them. They play hard with great discipline, and you can see the personality of Clem Haskins in his ball club.
One-time 3rd-round draft choice overall in the NBA. Had a fine 9-year career. And Bob Martin, a 52% free throw shooter, just nailed his first one.
Yeah, you consider that a good day when you get Bob Martin to make one of them.
He has 5 points. He has 6. And Minnesota has a 3-point lead as we approach 4 minutes to play in the first half. Game 2 to come tonight, Georgia Tech against Michigan State.
You know, the thing that has hurt Syracuse to a degree, see, Michael Edwards is too small to play. And because of that, they don't really have anybody that has a point guard mentality out on the court for Syracuse.
Coffey pulls down rebound number 6. Burton looks for room on the baseline. Good find from Martin.
Great find. That was a wraparound pass after getting caught by 2 people. But you see, Martin is making a big contribution.
8 points for Bob Martin. It's a 5-point lead for Minnesota. Now let's see how patient Syracuse is on their end.
This is when their age and experience needs to show. They need to be patient.
Owens, 3-pointer. Billy Owens from long range. He has 13 points and cuts the Minnesota lead to 2.
He's been in the shooting slump, Greg, and the thing that I thought needed to happen for him is to make a couple layups. He's done that early. Now he's made his jump shot. That was what really makes him a difficult player.
Inside, he is blocked, and here comes the Orange, 4-on-2. Good pass for Scott. Foul, no good. Johnson is there.
See, they 2 or 3 chances after the ball. I mean, they got guys that can just jet down the court and leap as well.
We're tied at 32 as we approach 2.5 minutes to play in the first half.
Got David Johnson on Willie Burton. Burton has been kind of quiet here lately.
Yes, he has. Lynch inside, high off the glass, doesn't go. And Coffey grabs the rebound. Here's Mario Green inside. That's a tough shot. Tapped home by Coffey.
Always around the ball. Great nose for the ball is Richard Coffey. Got him on offensive rebound basket.
That's 10 points, 8 rebounds for Richard Coffey. 2 minutes to play now. Minnesota by 2. Scott, 3-point. Got it.
He can stick it. He gets on a roll. He's the one that's been shooting the 3-pointers for the Orangemen. They'd like to see the fact that he's starting to warm up a little bit.
Syracuse by 1, 35-34. Pressure on the ball and a foul on Dave Johnson. Jim Boeheim standing there wondering where the foul was.
Well, there was a lot of action there, and I'm sure Jimmy would probably agree if he had our vantage point. But the thing that's starting to happen to Minnesota with Mario Green, he's not moving the ball and distributing it that well. And one of the things that if I'm Clem Haskins, I consider getting him out of the game so I can have the ball move around a little bit.
Well, the cheer is for Bob Martin, who goes to the bench, having done a sterling job for the Golden Gophers. 8 points and a couple of big rebounds as well.
Yeah, and credit should go to him because he played well. And as we were speaking, Connell Lewis came in for Mario Green because Mario is not moving the ball, and Minnesota was lucky to come up here with 2 foul shots.
Willie Burton gets the roll.
I know Willie Burton's a good foul shooter. That's why I gave him 2. This is a young man that walked up to me and said, "I remember you when I was little." You know, that makes you feel old.
I remember you when I was little.
Thank you very much.
Minute and a half to play. We're tied at 35. There's a whistle down low, and that'll be on Kevin Lynch. Lynch with his first. Both teams in the bonus, and Tony Scott will go to the line.
I'd have to say with a minute and a half to go here for Minnesota, they've got to score about where they wanted. They wanted to keep it probably in the high 60s, maybe mid 70s. And I would think Syracuse wants to win, obviously, but they would rather have the score a little bit higher so they can take advantage of their ability to run up and down the court.
There's the first good shot from the free throw line for the Orange tonight. They are now 1 out of 6. Tony Scott, a 65% free throw shooter, hits them both and gives Syracuse a 2-point lead with a minute 26 to play in the first half. We'll be right back. Well, you know, the Golden Gophers and their followers are equally proud of their school, 42,000 strong at the University of Minnesota, which proudly points to Hubert Humphrey, among other alumni, and medical research, one of the prominent studies there. 37-35 the score with a minute 26 to play first half. Greg Gumbel along with Quinn Buckner keeping you updated on what's happening in Oakland, California. Loyola Marymount leading Alabama 9-6 with 11:47 to play. Boy, now 11-6, but 11 points in about 8 minutes of play for Loyola Marymount. Wimp Sanderson taking the air out of the ball.
That doesn't surprise me. I said to you, we had this conversation, and I thought that Alabama's disciplined enough to hold the ball. They won't force the action, and you see the effect it's having on Loyola.
We are told, incidentally, Alabama's fine jump shooter Robert Horry, injured early on in that game, is now back in the lineup. So we'll keep you advised as we go along. Meanwhile, we're below 1 minute to play.
Coming out of that timeout, Syracuse went into a zone, forced a jump shot.
Shot clock down to 10, up no good from Bond, rebounded by Billy Owens, who has had a fine first half. Jim Boeheim wants him to spread it out.
Yeah, it's a good choice. Spread it out here. He's been able to get back in the league. His club really hadn't played that well, but in the NCAA tournament, you've got to be able to play your tempo and sometimes play the other team, and I think that's what Syracuse has been able to do here.
No shot clock, game clock to 20.
They got a couple mismatches they can go to. This is one of them, Billy Owens with the basketball, but you can always get Derek Coleman with the ball because he's got a mismatch too.
Owens almost lost the handle, out of bounds, belongs to Syracuse with 4 seconds to play. Stay tuned, coming up at halftime for the road to the Final Four. Jim Nantz, Mike Francesa bringing you up to date on everything that's happening in tonight's semifinal action from our studios in New York. For Owens, who got it. Not a bad way for Syracuse to go to the locker room. Billy Owens scoring his 14th and 15th points. This is a pretty good play for down to the buzzer, Quinn.
Well, it is a good play, but you see the height advantage, and you look that Walter Bond is trying to front Billy Owens and got no help on the backside. Billy Owens strong enough and quick enough to get it up before the clock expired.
You saw Clem Haskins' reaction on the far side. Take a look at Jim Boeheim. Yeah, he'll take that as he goes to the locker room. That's the end of the first half with the score Syracuse 39, Minnesota 35, and CBS Sports coverage of the NCAA Basketball Championship will continue after this message and a word from your local station. Billy Owens with a 15-point first half. He also has 6 rebounds. And he has carried the Orange to a 4-point lead. Meanwhile, on the Minnesota side, you can't say enough about what Richard Coffey did in the first half.
No, and most notably about his offense. You expect Richard Coffey to get rebounds, and he came out and I thought was real strong. But he started shooting jump shots, and that's something you really don't expect from him. So he's been the spiritual leader. He came out and played tough. The rest of the Golden Gophers have to play as tough if they want to win the game.
Meanwhile, that man, number 34, Willie Burton, comes into the game averaging 19 points a game. He only had 5 in the first half. So each team has a star that didn't produce the way they're expected to as we get underway. The lob, and a lob to Newburn.
That's a little bit of a reverse there. You know, you used to see Syracuse have the lob run, but as I said, that's Newburn. He's capable of a lot of good things.
8 points for Newburn.
Again, Syracuse comes out. Michael Edwards not in the game. They know they need to keep the big people in the game because Minnesota does a good job exploiting mismatches.
LaRon Ellis in the starting lineup for the second half. There's a steal by the Gophers. Newburn created it, and Newburn scores.
Again, we talked about ball handling. That's it. But Newburn, I thought, did a good job anticipating. But Minnesota's a little more active now in their man-to-man.
We are tied at 39. Minnesota has scored the first 4 points of the second half. Ellis into the paint. Back rim, no. Coleman had the rebound and lost it. Thompson with the loose ball. Nice shot by Stevie Thompson.
That's an offensive rebound, though, Greg. That's still the thing that's getting Minnesota in trouble.
10 points for Thompson. Syracuse by 2. Back to Shikanjansky. Ellis had the ball batted away, but didn't recover to guard his man.
Yeah, well, the surprising thing is that Ellis started the second half because he did not start the game, but obviously Jim Boeheim felt he got good enough production out of him to start him in the second half, but Shikanjansky's still able to put it in.
The man who's sitting down is guard Michael Edwards. Thompson. Out to Coleman. Nice touch.
He shot the ball. The reason I'm laughing, he never got off his feet. His arms are so long. He got it over everybody just by stretching him with a little touch.
Kevin Lynch. And the Gophers are now 4 out of 4 this half from the floor, and they tie it again.
Came out with a nice little turn in the corner. Kevin Lynch staying active. Ball handling is a problem here for Syracuse.
Coleman with Coffey on him. Inside, no. Coffey got the hand on it. Lynch has the ball. 4 on 3. The lead for Shikanjansky is out of bounds.
That's a bad decision by Kevin Lynch. You got a 6'10" guy out in front of you. You don't want to throw the ball out there to make him go get it. You throw people the ball that big, only with enough time for them to catch the ball, take it to the basket.
Loyola Marymount by 1 over Alabama, and 18 points for Loyola Marymount with 2 minutes to play. Do they have the lights on in the arena? Stevie Thompson gets inside again, doing a good job of penetrating, and it's 45-43 Orange.
You can't gamble on Stevie Thompson. He's not a great ball handler, but he's good enough that he can beat you if you gamble. Play him head up.
Coffey inside to Burton. The lob for Coffey. Coffey went up and got it. That's his 10th rebound and his 12th point. And we're tied at 45. There's a whistle down low. And let's see, that foul will go against Minnesota.
Willie Burton is having a tough time getting it over Billy Owens right here, but it goes up. And Richard Coffey's a rebounder. He knows when a shot, as a rule, is not going to go in. Always charging the basket. That time got a dunk. I mean, he's always going after. Great nose for the ball.
Coffey with his second personal foul. That one batted out of bounds by Burton. Syracuse led by 4 at halftime. They are 23-3 this season when they lead at the break.
Yeah, I would say that's a good statistic, except not in the tournament. Doesn't matter in the tournament. You're playing very good teams when you get right here.
Derek Coleman. Ellis had it, lost it. Russell, and possession arrow favors Syracuse. Quinn, what'd you do with the light on the possession arrow?
Well, I don't have it. Tim Haskins getting Shikanjansky out of the game, brought in Bobby Martin. because they felt that Chicken-Jansky's got to get some rebounds for him, and they brought Bobby Martin in because he did a good job of that.
Clem's going to do a little coaching on the sidelines here.
Sure, he's telling him he's got to have some rebounding for him.
So Bob Martin, who had an excellent first half, 7-foot sophomore, is into the lineup. He's number 55, and he's playing in the middle of the Minnesota zone right now.
Yeah, out of bounds situation. They go into a 2-3, move it into a matchup to keep somebody on the ball.
Scott's three-pointer no good, and Burton with the flat-footed rebound. Here comes Newbern. Newbern trying to find the path. He scores, and it counts.
I'm not surprised. I'm telling you, this kid can play. I mean, he goes through some tough breaks, but he'll do things that amaze people if you haven't watched him.
6'4", 200-pound senior from Toledo, Ohio, and here comes the Toledo Express.
Well, he does a good job taking the ball to the basket, but I'll have to tell you what, if I'm Jim Boeheim, I'm a little disappointed somebody doesn't step up and stop Melvin Newberg, but you see him celebrating what he knows was a good move to get to the hoop like that.
Ellis has the rebound. Threw a little bit of an elbow, and the officials take a look and talk to him about it on the way down.
You got Willie Burton guarding Derek Coleman now. You got the two stars. And you see again, quick hands by Walter Bond.
Newbern with Owens in pursuit, and he's fouled from behind.
Applauding a good defensive effort. Jimmy Boeheim trying to figure out what is his crew thinking about. They know that what Minnesota will do is you'll start on the sideline and then they'll turn you. And Melvin Newbern is always going to try to show up as you turn and get a steal as he did that time.
6 points this half for Melvin Newbern. And 14-13 for the game. Minnesota's lead is 3. Make it 4. Quinn, I thought that the Gophers were aggressive in the first half, but they look even more so this half.
Well, they realize they've got a shot to win this game. I still think some of them, Greg, were not as sure of their chances here against Syracuse. And once they're only down 4 at half and haven't been up, they feel they got a good shot here.
Owens, that's a two-pointer on the way. It doesn't go. And Ellis is there. He missed the follow. Burton has the rebound.
Ellis has got to get that in the basket. He's 6'10". You can't afford to miss those.
Kevin Lynch. Coleman has it. Back come the Orange. And that's a foul, and that's a useless foul by Melvin Newbern.
That's the other side of Melvin Newbern.
15:27 to play. Second half. Minnesota leads it by 4. We'll be right back. Boy, out in Oakland, California, that's got to be a monumental turn of events. Loyola Marymount with just 22 points in the first half, and although they lead it, obviously Loyola Marymount not playing their game. The winner of that game will play the winner of game 2 to come later tonight out in Oakland. Nevada, Las Vegas, the #1 seed in the West against Ball State. Here, Minnesota leads Syracuse by 4 with 15:25 to play here in the second half.
Coming out, they're playing a 2-1-2 zone with Bobby Martin inside, forced the jump shot by Syracuse. You can't let people get in the paint.
Thompson lost the ball, regained it. Ellis has it, blocked by Martin. Foul is called on Martin. Ellis will go to the line.
Clem Haskin knows that was another opportunity that got away from them there. The ball pops loose, and now you're looking at Bobby Martin having fouled LaRon Ellis, but that's another potential fast break opportunity. Just slip through your fingers.
Ellis makes 1 out of 2. Rebound, Syracuse. And that's he says they got the ball, so that is a jump ball, and the possession arrow now favors Minnesota.
Yeah, that again, dodging some bullets here is Minnesota.
Or the lack of possession arrow favors Minnesota. 15:05 to play, second half. Minnesota with the 3-point lead in the basketball.
Syracuse has come out, gone into a zone as well. The penetration by Minnesota has caused Syracuse problems, so they decided with a bigger lineup to go to a zone.
Inside, Martin. Bob Martin continues to get it done inside. He's got 10.
Because he was left-handed, he got that shot off. Derek Coleman was waiting for the ball to come in his face, and with his right hand, Martin is left-handed, so he was able to keep it away from Coleman.
Tony Scott, three-pointer on the way. Rebound, Coffey had it and lost it, Ellis. We welcome those of you who have been watching the Loyola Marymount Alabama game in Oakland, California. Greg Gumbel along with Quinn Buckner here at the Southeast Regional in New Orleans, where our score is Minnesota 51 and Syracuse 48. It has been an outstanding performance by Billy Owens of the Syracuse Orangemen, who has 15 points. But a scrappy Minnesota ball club has hung in there.
And Greg, that pretty much exemplifies what's happened. Is just that Minnesota is just scrapped out here. They've had various people come up big for them. Bob Martin's come off the bench, played well. Newberg's got a good second half, and Coffey played a great first half. So they've got a lot of people pitching in for Minnesota, and that's where they got this lead.
Clem Haskins, Minnesota coach, didn't think much of that last three-point attempt by Willie Burton. Coleman doesn't get the bounce. Followed by Owens, doesn't go. Thompson has it. Beautiful shot by Stephen Thompson.
Well, we talked about it. The offensive rebounds have been the thing that has really hurt Minnesota and obviously helped Syracuse. Minnesota not blocking out. They're going straight up to get rebounds. And if you do that with Syracuse, they'll out-jump you.
51-50, Gophers by one. Working on the zone, Coffey inside. That's an offensive foul on Coffey. As Coffey draws his third personal foul, you see what a job Minnesota has been doing from the floor in the second half. Although Billy Owens continues to hold his own for Syracuse with 15 points.
Yeah, Minnesota's been able to do that, Greg, as you know, primarily because they've been able to push the ball up the court and get some turnovers and take advantage of it.
Winner of this game plays the winner of game 2 later on this evening here in the Dome. Georgia Tech against Michigan State. 12:50 to play, second half.
This is the mismatch they've got to start taking advantage of. Derek Coleman's got to get into the game offensively.
Foul is on Newbern. And that'll send Coleman to the line. That's 2 on Newbern.
Newbern really had it going. I mean, he made some outstanding plays. What he's been told by Richard Coffey is to back off his shooter, back off with the play. But if it's Stevie Thompson making the pass, you want him to shoot a jump shot, then you can back in. Richard Coffey can play behind Derek Coleman, and then you can help keep the ball from going inside to Coleman because Coleman's got too much offense in there.
Bob Martin comes out of the game. He's replaced by Jim Shikenjansky, 6'9" senior from Rockton, Illinois. Coleman made 1 out of 2, and we have a tie game at 51. Newbern, double team, lost the ball. Good pressure, but then the Orange throw it away. Lynch, good pass down low for Shikenjansky, who has no place to go. And they lost it out of bounds, and what a tumble taken on the far side.
Well, he's all the way off it, and they're trying to help him up. He just ran over a couple riders. But everybody seems to be all right. But that's Richard Coffey.
And I'm telling you, you're looking at a guy who's 6'6", 210 pounds, who used to be a paratrooper in the Army, and that may be one of his shorter jumps.
Yeah, well, he's taken a fall or two and been able to help himself. Right here, Shikenjansky had the right idea, but the defense came and helped out. And what I saw Richard Coffey go after this, but what disappointed me was I watched Melvin Newberg watch Richard Coffey go for the ball, and Newberg had a better angle.
Lob inside, good defensive play by Lynch, and here comes Minnesota 2-on-1, and the lob for Shikenjansky, and he tracks it down.
I said no, because that's the same play we talked about again. You don't throw the ball up to this guy 6'10" running like that.
Here comes Syracuse. We're still tied at 61. Thompson to Ellis, and that'll be a foul on Walter Bond.
That's the kind of tempo that you don't want if you're Walter Bond and the Golden Gophers. That up and down. Syracuse has players that can do a lot of good things. If they miss shots, they've been able to put them back in and like they did in the first half.
Quinn, I was thinking, you've heard about sliding on defense. If Richard Coffey comes this way, it's exactly what you're going to see me do, slide away from it. Syracuse now 4 out of 12 from the free throw line in this game. Again, unusual for a team that has been hitting 80% of its free throws so far in the tournament. But look at Coleman control that rebound.
I mean, he right over the top of Willie Burton.
Three-pointer puts Syracuse up 54-51. Coleman has 13.
I mean, Greg, literally, Willie Burton had him blocked out. Derek Coleman just took his hand and just tipped the ball in the air, controlled it out to himself for that three-pointer.
Syracuse has scored the last 8 points. Inside, Burton.
It's good patience on the part of Minnesota. That's the one thing that they have a lot of patience. They'll get the shots, but they've got to do a better job blocking out on the offensive glass.
Syracuse has done a good job of bottling up Willie Burton, who has just 7 points so far tonight. Pass taken away. Up ahead for Lynch. Well, Tony Scott went up through the bottom of the net to try to block that one.
Try to get it any way you can, but that's not legal.
55-54, Minnesota with the lead, 10:50 to play in the game. Clem Haskins says, we're looking good right now. Welcome back to New Orleans, everyone, the Louisiana Superdome. In the East semis yesterday in East Rutherford, New Jersey, Tate George's shot at the buzzer lifted UConn over Clemson, and Duke handled UCLA. So that pits Duke against the University of Connecticut tomorrow. The winner advances to Denver. And that begins at 1:40 Eastern Time, game 1 of a doubleheader here on CBS.
That'll be a good test for Bobby Hurley, the young player at Duke, to be able to handle that Connecticut press. He'll find out exactly what he's learned under Mike Krzyzewski. That time Willie Burton just kicked the ball out of bounds. Did not kick it out of bounds, but he kicked it. But you see there in a 1-2-2 press, they got everybody up.
Syracuse, no problems getting the ball over half court.
See, Michael Edwards is back in the game. A little more ball handling in there now.
Edwards has the open shot.
Now that makes this game entirely different. Once he makes that shot, now you got to guard him, and he's quick enough to get around and make some things happen. That's a good sign for Jimmy Boeheim's crew.
Syracuse by 2 with 10:20 to play in the game.
This is the zone that Syracuse is playing is a way to protect Edwards as well.
Lynch three-pointer is good. So the Gophers come right back with an answer. And Clem Haskins would love to see his junior guard begin to light it up.
Minnesota has a lot of answers to your problems that you present to. But as we talked about at the top of the show, just not very many people know a whole lot about them. And that can work to your advantage, because that means you haven't been scouted as often, too.
Billy Owens, three-pointer. How do you like riding this seesaw? Syracuse has been doing a pretty good job over the last several minutes. That one out of bounds.
It is Minnesota's ball.
9:25 to play. Syracuse by 2. Underneath, Willie Burton. And he was fouled. Boy, Burton got good, quick position down low.
He just lulled Derek Coleman to sleep and got what you normally don't see a lot of. It's just stepped right into the basket, got the ball, and got Derek Coleman a foul.
That's 3 on Coleman. Kevin Lynch, three-pointer. And he's at 2 straight.
We talked about him at the top, early in the game, and he's a player.
12 points for Lynch. Minnesota by 1.
This is where they've got to get the basketball. Derek Coleman.
And Coleman just tossing the ball at Bob Martin, just drew a technical. Coleman was bumped from behind, and from here, I would say, Quinn, he overreacted.
There's no question. I don't care what anybody did to you. You don't have to throw the basketball at him. Derek Coleman has shown such good improvement. For him to do this is just absolutely unnecessary. You see right here that Martin is there, and it looks to me like Derek Coleman initiated everything. He not only threw the ball, but he threw an elbow as well.
Here's another look.
Right there, he's got position. And he just comes over and he fell backwards. I don't think Bob Martin meant to do anything. But you can't afford to lose your cool here. This is a tight game. And right here, Derek Coleman gets a technical foul. Not a wise choice at all.
What Derek Coleman has to do here is settle down.
Yeah, he does have to settle down, but it'll be interesting to see here. We got 9:06 to go. Does he get himself into the game by getting down on the block, calling for the ball, making some things happen? That's the only thing worthwhile in a game like this. Getting technicals aren't worthwhile at all.
I don't think he gets a free throw here. Is Syracuse in the bonus situation already? Yes, they are. They are in the bonus situation, but Coleman missed the free throw.
Now, what they're talking about, that he was not taking a shot. This is a 1-and-1. That's right. Exactly right. He wasn't shooting.
And now we'll come to the other end, and Willie Burton, a 78% free throw shooter on the season, will shoot the tee.
Yeah, this will be a nice point to just for us to watch, to see how Syracuse reacts to this, because they've basically given away probably potentially 5 points. They missed the free throw. If Willie Burton makes these 2 foul shots, they also get the ball. This young man's got a good future at the next level.
Minnesota by 2, 62-60, and the Gophers have the basketball. Cross-court pass for Lynch.
You see right away in that man-to-man situation, they try to take advantage of Michael Edwards. He's too small to guard him. Lynch again, showing his ability.
They did just that. 14 points for Lynch. 4-point Minnesota lead. 8 minutes and 51 seconds to play. Gophers in the man-to-man. Edwards. Good move by Edwards.
Yeah, see, he made that first jump shot, and they also, I mean, either Newberg or Lynch, both of them are much too big to try to guard Edwards. Now you got to come out after him, and you see what happens then. He takes it to the basket.
Steal by Thompson. Martin recovers. It is Ellis's duty to guard Martin down low. And there is a foul on Billy Owens. Loyola Marymount by 2. And we know how hot they were last weekend in Long Beach. Quinn, you and I were there. They were hitting better than a 2 of 12 clip from three-point land.
Yeah, you know what part of what happens is they're not in their rhythm. Obviously, they're playing more to the tempo of Alabama, and it makes a big difference when you're shooting the ball in somebody else's rhythm.
Boy, 2 out of 12. Jeff Fryer was 11 of 15 against Michigan alone.
Well, I guarantee you, just because they're 2 out of 12 doesn't mean they will stop taking them. They will continue taking the shot.
Lynch. Inside, Kevin Lynch on a tear, and Minnesota leads at 66-62.
LaRon Ellis has got to stand up there and make Kevin Lynch eat that. He's 6'10", the guy's driving at him. I'm all for taking charge, but there are opportunities to block a shot. You got to take them.
Lob didn't work. Loose ball recovered by Syracuse. Coleman for 3. And Lynch has it. Coleman hits the deck. Lynch for Burton. And that'll be an offensive foul.
Well, LaRon Ellis got a foul on Willie Burton. That's his 4th, too. That's going to hurt Minnesota. Boy, you don't want to get him in foul trouble.
We'll take a timeout with 7:43 to play here in the game. It's Minnesota by 4. Back in the Louisiana Superdome in New Orleans for Southeast Regional action. Greg Gumbel along with Quinn Buckner. We have 7:43 to play in the game. Minnesota leads Syracuse 66-62. Minnesota is hitting 75% from the floor in the second half, and Kevin Lynch has caught fire after just a 2-point first half. He now has 16 for the game, 14 of them here in the half, and 7 of 10 from the floor.
Well, this is a critical point for Minnesota because they now have to play without Willie Burton, their leading scorer. He hadn't done much in the game, but his presence has gotten people like Lynch open. So now they have to find some other ways to get offense and a way to stop this guy, Derek Coleman.
Coleman double-teamed, and Martin leaned into him and drew the foul.
Martin can't guard Coleman, so Minnesota's trying to run two people at him as much as they can, but Coleman is eventually going to pop loose here and start scoring some points for Syracuse.
Coleman will shoot 2. A 13-point, 10-rebound night for Derek so far. And the Syracuse troubles at the line continue. Out of bounds to the Orange.
Well, you know, the officials are doing a good job of really letting people play here, because I've seen a lot of little tic-tacs on their hands, and the ball may go out every now and then, but I like the fact that they're letting the kids, you know, decide this game.
Tic-tacs, hoop talk?
Yes.
Edwards' three-point bomb doesn't fall. And going to the floor, traveling violation on Walter Bond.
That's a good call. What he's trying to say is that Billy Owens was behind him and moved just as he came down and trying to get a foul call. The official made a good no call on that. Unfortunately, if you fall on the floor, anytime you do that with the ball, they'll call travel.
Tony Scott into the game for LeRon Ellis.
LeRon wasn't getting it done. He wasn't scoring. He wasn't playing very good defense, got a charge. But Tony Scott will start sticking some jump shots for him.
Owens misses that one. Thompson with the rebound and back up top to Edwards, who will take it. And Bond chases this one down and steps on the line.
Now, Edwards is starting to take shots he doesn't need to take. I mean, the one he took there was close to an NBA three-pointer. He had a chance to take a dribble to take a much better shot. But the real problem for Minnesota is that they have not, in the last two opportunities, come up with the basketball. So they're still not doing the job they need to do to block out.
Exactly. Syracuse has missed its last 5 shots, and Minnesota hasn't been able to capitalize. Scott for 3. It won't last forever.
But if you get to shoot at it enough, you got to figure one of them will go in.
Minnesota's lead is 1. Bond looking for room on the baseline and then back outside to Coffey.
They've gone back to man-to-man, Syracuse has.
And this is a tough assignment for Edwards to guard Lynch.
Well, as long as Lynch is standing out there dribbling the ball, it's to Edwards' advantage. But if you get Lynch down on the block, he clearly has an advantage over Edwards.
Whistle blows. That basket will not count. Foul looks to be on Stephen Thompson, and it is. That's his first. Alabama with the lead over Loyola Marymount. Plenty of time remaining in Oakland. Along the baseline, good move, Walter Bond.
Backside of the press, of the zone, I'm sorry.
Minnesota by 3 as we approach 6 minutes for the game.
Minnesota having trouble guarding Coleman, so they go into his zone.
Owens with the follow, doesn't go. Coleman. That is before the shot. And a foul looks to be on Bond. This will not be a 2-shot foul. It'll be a 1-and-1.
Walter Bond has not put a body on Derek Coleman, and that time he got called for the foul. Willie Burton's going to come back in the game because at this point, with 6 minutes to go, a little under 6 minutes to go, what they've decided to do for Minnesota is got to get my start back in the game. It doesn't do me any good on the bench, so you get him back in and take your chances with him.
Coleman 1 for 6 from the line tonight. 2 for 7.
Well, if you're a Syracuse fan, you got to know that'll come back in his favor.
Syracuse only shooting 31% from the free throw line tonight, and that goes up a notch.
Good find.
Up ahead is Newburn.
The defense for Syracuse fell asleep, and Richard Coffey called it. They had a little high sign between Newburn and Coffey. Syracuse has got to do a better job getting back.
Minnesota back to the 3-point lead. Minnesota has hit its last 5 shots from the floor. Owens, 3. Around and out. Coleman, another rebound. And Owens, good behind the back pass for Ellis, who is blocked and follows up.
Offensive rebounds, we've talked about it.
Newburn down court by himself, and Lynch will slow it down. 70-69 as we approach 5 minutes to play in the game.
I expected to see Minnesota do a lot more of this, try to run the clock down to get 15 seconds or so. And that time that they tried to run it down, they got a foul here on Scott.
Foul call. Let's take it back down to the other end in this Billy Owens pass.
Well, Billy Owens has got so much ability. He goes to the basket, sees the defense collapsing on him, and gets it to LaRon Ellis, who doesn't get it in the first time, but he stays after it. But, you know, Billy Owens, I've liked this game. He can really do some good things for you. Pass it, shoot it. But most importantly, if he can get LaRon Ellis in the game, it really helps his club.
By the way, we watched Syracuse practice those passes yesterday. Coffey's shot off the baseline doesn't go, and here comes Thompson. Syracuse down by 1, 4:45 to play. All the way across court to Scott. Coleman lost the handle. On the floor, picked off by Minnesota. Lynch for Newburn.
Lynch makes the play. He turned the defense all the way around. Stevie Thompson never found Newburn because Lynch turned him, and he was able to get it to him at the last second.
18 points for Melvin Newburn. And a 3-point lead for the Golden Gophers. Scott for 3. Scott with the foul. Missed it. Here comes Newburn for Lynch. And Lynch lost it. Clem Haskins asking for a little patience from his team. And timeout, Syracuse, 3:54 to play. Clem Haskins and his crew lead it by 3. Midwest semifinal action last night. Arkansas, the winner over North Carolina, and a strong Texas team beating Xavier. That leads to an Arkansas-Texas matchup in Game 2 of tomorrow's doubleheader. And that's just the Southwest Conference renewal. That'll be a dandy. That's Game 2 of the doubleheader tomorrow, coming from Reunion Arena in Dallas. And a reminder, later this evening, we'll bring you Game 2 of the Southeast Regional Semifinals here in New Orleans between the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets and the Spartans of Michigan State. Minnesota still popping at a 75% clip here in the second half.
They've come out of the timeout and gone man-to-man. Richard Coffey is trying to guard Derek Coleman. Syracuse needs to get the ball to Coleman. It's just too difficult for Coffey or anybody to handle by themselves.
Ellis had the shot and was fouled by Shikenjansky. Ellis had the shot, passed it up, and was looking to pass the ball when he was fouled.
He didn't look very confident, Greg. I watched him, and he had this hesitation in his eye, and he did the wise thing. If you're not confident to go right up and stick it, then the best thing to do is to move the basketball. That time he moved himself, caused the foul.
Ellis, only a 52% shooter from the line, and he's 1 for 4 tonight. Connell Lewis, Walter Bond out of the game. Willie Burton, Kevin Lynch back in for Minnesota.
Well, they got the 2 star players, obviously, in the game. Bond goes and takes a breather. But with LaRon Ellis on the foul line, the other thing you had is David Johnson has come back in the game, and it's a bigger lineup. So that's what Clem Haskins was trying to counter that by getting his players back in the game. He got both Newberg and Burton and Lynch in the game so they can match the height.
Ellis hits them both.
See, Syracuse has put on their full court press.
Good ball handling by the Gophers gets it over. 72-71, Minnesota with the lead and the basketball.
From here, Minnesota is going to, if you will, aggressively try to milk the clock. They're still going to attack, but they're not going to do it quickly. They'll use 20 seconds off the clock.
Willie Burton with 4 fouls. Owens trying to draw the charge and the 5th foul, and Jim Boeheim wanting the call but not getting it.
This is a mismatch. Burton should take this one.
Inside, fallen bodies, loose ball, and here comes Syracuse. Owens fouled. Owens fouled from behind by Coffey, and that's 4 on Coffey.
But that was a great effort there, because if he doesn't hustle, Billy Owens has a chance to throw the ball off to Stevie Thompson, who's out ahead. Jimmy Boeheim's pleased that his crew got there, but you got to give Richard Coffey credit, because he stopped a sure fast break there.
So you've got Coffey with 4 personals out there, Burton with 4 personals.
Well, they have just hurt themselves tremendously from the foul line.
As a team on the season, Syracuse shoots 65%. But as we said, 80% in the first 2 tournament games, but it's been just horrendous tonight.
And should the game continue as it's going now with Minnesota leading, that's the one thing that Syracuse has to look to as the weakness that calls in the game.
Burton got it. That's a two-pointer. 10 points for Willie Burton, 3-point Gopher lead. 2:15 to play and timeout on the floor. Coming down the home stretch, Syracuse is down 3. We'll be right back. Should be a pretty good 2:15, don't you think? Minnesota leading Syracuse 74-71. Welcome back to the Louisiana Superdome, everyone. There's the timeout situation. No one has a foul to give, and should the ball be tied up, Syracuse will get it. Greg Gumbel along with Quinn Buckner reminding you that coming up next here on CBS, we continue to travel the road to the Final Four. Georgia Tech, Michigan State here in New Orleans. Ball State against Nevada, Las Vegas out in Oakland, California.
We got ball handling at a premium here, so they got Michael Edwards back in the game so he can handle the basketball. You see coming out in the 1-3-1 this time is Minnesota. Again, keep the ball on the perimeter. Scott just threw that one right out of bounds.
And Jim Boeheim wants a substitution right away. LaRon Ellis coming in. So will Dave Johnson, and Kevin Lynch back into the game for Minnesota, along with Walter Bond.
The switches are for defense and offense. For Syracuse, they want their better, taller team in, defensive team. For Minnesota, they want their best ball handling and free throw shooting team in the contest.
So both coaches working feverishly to get the matchup they want on the floor. Under 2 minutes to play.
Man-to-man. Syracuse is in man-to-man, and they can do that because they got Michael Edwards out. He's too short to guard anybody.
Clem Haskins will want nothing but patience here.
No, he really does. You don't want to take away your aggressiveness of your team, but you tell them, all right, we're going to let the air out. You can be aggressive, but let's do it with about 10 seconds to go on the clock.
Newburn to the baseline and back out to Lynch. Shot clock is at 15. Newburn to the baseline. Oh, what a shot.
See, I'm telling you, Melvin Newburn can go. He does things like this all the time, but he just has those lapses.
20 points for Melvin Newburn, and timeout, Syracuse. A minute 16 to play. Syracuse has that much time to make up a 5-point deficit. Welcome back to the Louisiana Superdome here in New Orleans. Game 1 of the Southeast Regional Semifinals. Minnesota leading Syracuse 76-71. Greg Gumbel along with Quinn Buckner. We welcome those of you who've been watching Loyola Marymount against Alabama. Minnesota in the dark jerseys on your screen. Syracuse in white. With the ball, they trail by 5, and Minnesota has been lighting it up in the second half. They are shooting 78% from the floor.
Well, they've come out and played much aggressive on the defensive end. That's where they've got a lot of their points. It's just forcing turnovers and moving down the other side.
David Edwards got that bucket, and a foul is called now on Billy Owens. Billy Owens has been the man who has been behind the Syracuse attack. He has now drawn his 4th personal foul. Told you about the field goal percentages, and Syracuse has had its share of problems from the free throw line, while guard Melvin Newburn has been the spark plug for the Golden Gophers with 20 points.
Well, he came out at the half, Greg, and he scored the first 6 points for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. But Kevin Lynch has been a player who's played well. He came out, he knocked down a couple 3-pointers. He's a good player. They have about 4 or 5 players that you probably haven't heard of, but they can get it done.
Walter Bond's free throw there wasn't even close.
Yeah, if you mean it was a brick, you're right.
3-point Minnesota lead. Time remaining in the game, 45 seconds.
You got to get the ball to Derek Coleman, I mean, because Minnesota doesn't have to take another shot.
That's a 3-point shot that misses there, and Minnesota with a big rebound. Kevin Lynch fouled in the backcourt by Coleman. The lady hiding her face in the center of your screen is Yvette Haskins, the wife of head coach Clem Haskins for Minnesota. Clem doesn't have time to worry about Yvette just now. He's a little busy.
A little busy. Got something he's trying to get communicated here. Clem has had his club in his position before. Last year, they were in the semifinals of the regional, and the players, like anybody else for the first time, were a little excited. This year, they come with the purpose of winning the game. That man on the foul line has had as much impact on the game as anybody else, and I'm sure Clem Haskins and the rest of the Golden Gophers know that as well.
Kevin Lynch has 17 points now, 15 of them in the second half. He's a 78% free throw shooter, and he nails another one. And Clem Haskins wants timeout. 32 seconds. All that stands between Clem Haskins and victory. That's what's happening out in Oakland, California, with just over 6 minutes to play. Alabama pulled a big victory over Arizona on Sunday and is now leading Loyola Marymount. Here we have just over half a minute to play. Minnesota by 5 over Syracuse. Greg Gumbel along with Quinn Buckner. Minnesota with 3 timeouts remaining. Syracuse down to 1. And Edwards pushing the ball up the floor. Three-pointer on the way. No. Big rebound and a foul underneath.
Well, you know you've got to give Clem Haskins some credit. I mean, he's got his team obviously in the position to win, but they were talking about it. I mean, all of Minnesota about getting respect, and they knew if they could get this far and win this game, people will start paying more attention to the Minnesota Gophers, and they've got themselves a great shot at winning this game.
That is 5 personal fouls on Billy Owens. And Owens a little reluctant to leave the floor.
No, Billy's doing the right thing. Let him tell you it's time to go out of the game. I mean, he played a great game. He'd been struggling, and then he started to get his offense going. But Derek Coleman never really got in the game. And Billy Owens was the guy that carried the load, and then Billy went flat, and nobody else picked it up.
18 points, 9 rebounds for Owens. Big free throws from Walter Bond here. The 6'5" junior from Chicago, a 68% free throw shooter on the season. Minnesota by 7. No shot clock.
They just go back here. The only thing, if you're Minnesota, you don't foul. You see Minnesota still hustling.
Coleman for Thompson, and he gets the bucket, and Syracuse uses its last timeout with 14 seconds to play, and Minnesota's lead is 5. We'll be right back. Minnesota beat Texas El Paso in overtime in Richmond, then beat Northern Iowa 81-78. And they've got the man they want at the free throw line.
Yeah, Kevin Lynch, he's had a big game. I mean, he hit those 3-pointers, and from there you could sense kind of a rise out of all of the players on Minnesota because Kevin Lynch didn't shoot very well in the first half.
Tip-in is good by Willie Burton.
I think that sums it up. They've been able to do just about anything they needed to do when they had to.
Don't take it out!
Thompson's 3 is no good. Out of bounds, belongs to Minnesota.
Got to be Minnesota's ball.
Alabama leading Loyola Marymount. You will see the end of that game following this one. And that's it.
Well, Greg, I said this to you. I thought Minnesota had a chance to beat Syracuse, but I'll tell you what, that guy in the center of the screen has really done it, Clem Haskins.
Minnesota goes 23-8. Stephen Thompson's career at Syracuse comes to a very bitter end here on the floor of the Superdome in New Orleans. As does Derek Coleman, a likely first pick in the NBA draft.
Well, he's over right now, but he'll get his chance to play some more. You see Melvin Newberg celebrating. That's Rick Bay, the athletic director at Minnesota, congratulating Clem Haskins on what was just an outstanding coaching job.
Think Willie Burton is happy? Syracuse, the number 2 seed in the Southeast, eliminated by 6th-seeded Minnesota. And Clem Haskins lives to fight another day. Golden Gophers in double-figure scoring, led by Melvin Newbern, who had 20 points.
But they got great play from everybody. You know, we talked about it. Lynch started to pick it up. He played well. Martin comes off the bench in the first half. You don't expect anything from him off the bench. He takes Shikanjansky's plays well. Everybody came in and contributed on the part of the Minnesota Golden Gophers, and they haven't been given respect. And I think that's what caught Syracuse. They haven't heard about these kids, but now everybody in America knows the Golden Gophers can play.